From scamming his followers with the notorious Edfluence to being charged with criminal trespassing and sexual abuse, these are Jake Paul's most controversial moments. One thing's clear, Jake is far from careful with his words. With his massive fan base of young children, he openly preached against getting an education. In other words, he was practically every parent's worst nightmare. Diss tracks against teachers and saying education won't do them any good wasn't all that he did. Paul thought he could figure out a way to make education all about money and line his pockets at the same time. And that's how Edfluence was born. What is Edfluence, you ask? A series of videos that promise to turn every kid into a millionaire for the price of just $7. Sounds like a good deal, not gonna lie, but there's more. In this Get Rich the Jake Paul Way series, Jake posted videos where he gave people obvious advice like, if you're good at makeup, post makeup tutorials. Gee golly, Jake. How could we possibly know? Many influencers pointed out that in order to unlock the rest of the videos, people had to pay an additional $57. And guess what? You can't access the videos you paid for in 2018 anymore, so that's $64 down the drain. He didn't stop here. He launched another website by the name of the Financial Freedom Movement, which was just Edfluence with a different name. Very creative on Jake's part, surely. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on Jake Paul. Scams aren't the only thing Paul knows best. Turns out, Jake Paul also knows a thing or two about posting graphic content on YouTube. Remember what I said about Jake Paul being every parent's worst nightmare? Yeah, despite having a young audience, he didn't hesitate to post content that was graphic and violent in nature. It started when he posted a vlog with his ex-girlfriend in which he posed semi-nude with the title, "I Lost My Virginity." After receiving a ton of backlash from other YouTubers, he deleted the vlog. He didn't stop though. Instead, he delved into more sexual content and glamorized pornography by often featuring adult movie star Riley Reid. It's becoming more and more clear that his insensitivity knew no bounds. That's not all, folks. When it comes to offending other people, the problem child takes it all. He came under a lot of criticism after posting that anxiety was somehow self-induced and that simply being happy would fix that. In essence, he gaslighted millions of his fans who had anxiety disorders. He then went around telling people to chill out and go for a walk. Jake Paul, ladies and gentlemen, is a YouTube celebrity, a boxer, and now a licensed therapist.
You see an obstacle and you just fucking go over it.
Another thing he doesn't hesitate to do is use racial slurs. We're living in the 21st century, Paulie. His usage of the N-word twice while freestyle rapping at Coachella was overshadowed by his brother's controversial Japanese forest video. To no one's surprise at all, it turns out that insensitivity runs in the Logan family. Controversy seems to follow Paul, or maybe it's the other way around. He even turned his love life into business. Yes, I'm talking about his two fake marriages. What's known to the entire human race as a sacred bond between two people is what Jake Paul likes to call entertainment. Yep, you heard me right. Paul faked 2 marriages and referred to the act as a set-up WWE match. The first wedding was with his ex-girlfriend Erica Costell, and the second one was with Tana Mojo, an influencer with more than 5 million subscribers. It turns out that what people say is wrong. Marriage can get you a fortune instead of costing you one. This entire fiasco had an estimated media value of $600 million from the relationship's initiation to the divorce. While Mojo said the wedding was nothing but a sham, she did describe the wedding night as a hellish experience. She dealt with a family emergency while Paul was posing with multiple half-naked women on their honeymoon. There are red flags, and then there are Jake Paul flags. Ladies, Tana isn't the only one who complained about Paul being a terrible partner off-screen. Shane Dawson's series on Jake revealed details of his love life that scared us all. Alyssa Violet also had similar issues with Paul. She said he was cold and distant off camera and the relationship felt forced. Stories about his abuse might send chills down your spine. Violet added that he once dragged her down the stairs and broke her phone. While his ex-girlfriends might not characterize him as a physically abusive person, he did make sure that all women would think twice before pursuing a relationship with a man like him. As the entire world protested for Black Lives Matter, guess what the problem child was up to? Vandalism and trespassing. In Paul's defense, he was there to simply just film the looting and vandalism to show his audience the truth at the Scottsdale Fashion Square shopping mall. But when the police turned their investigation toward his presence in the mall, it turns out he wasn't there to protest at all. He was charged with criminal trespass and unlawful assembly. He went to Twitter and said that the police can hand him his charges and put the spotlight back on George Floyd. That's not all. On August 5th, 2020, the FBI raided his mansion in Calabasas to investigate his involvement in the Arizona mall raid. And guess what they found? Firearms. A lot of them. The U.S. Attorney's Office said there's no case to be pursued and he'd face no federal charges. I'm having a hard time believing this guy's innocence. But that's not all. You must think, what has this man not done? There's another thing that he definitely did, denying the worst tragedy of the 21st century. Jake Paul doesn't believe the pandemic was real. While everyone is entitled to their opinion, believing that COVID was a hoax is proof he tends to ignore the obvious. In an interview with the Daily Beast, he said that COVID-19 cases are less than 1%, and it's costing entire populations. People are losing their jobs, the market is collapsing, and everyone is coping with drugs and alcohol. Interestingly, in the Los Angeles County where Paul lived, the COVID cases were 7.3% positive. A disease that killed millions of people across the world was definitely a hoax. Right. We've established that Paul has low regard for everyone around him. No surprise, he feels the same way about the environment. While the rest of the world switches over to metal straws to save the turtles, Jake Paul was caught driving over them. This incident is proof that this man acts before he thinks. In May 2021, a video emerged of him driving over a protected beach on the island nation. Sea turtles are protected by Constitution in Puerto Rico. Tourists are told to be careful, and Jake Paul casually decided to drive over endangered sea turtle eggs. Their environmental protection agency told the BBC that people who break the law by riding on the beach will face fines and other penalties. He received a ton of backlash online, and petitions were signed urging the government to charge him with a crime, and rightfully so. It feels like the only true relationship Jake Paul seems to be in is with controversy. He just can't seem to let go. He found new ways to gain publicity in his new career, and frankly, I'm not surprised. Let's talk about his controversies in the fighting ring. He continued to get the spotlight on him in 2022, making numerous headlines by calling out boxers like Nate Diaz and Canelo Alvarez. And that's not all. After getting bored with his fellow boxers, he went right after the UFC president, Dana White. If persistence had a face, it would be Jake Paul's. He also went after Andrew Tate, a controversial influencer who went viral for his misogynistic self-help tips. He said that Andrew would be too scared to face him in the ring. Either way, attention hogging is something Paulie seems to have been very fond of since the start, regardless of how awful the reason for attention might be. Paul was accused of sexual assault by two different women. In April 2021, two different women claimed that Paul had sexually abused them. The first woman was Justine Paradise, with more than 500,000 followers. She released a 20-minute video with details of her encounter with Paul. Let me warn you, gruesome details ahead. She said they were consensually dancing and kissing, but when she resisted, he forced her to perform oral sex in July of 2019 at the Team 10 house. Of course, Jake took it to Twitter and denied the allegations, calling them manufactured and saying that he never had a sexual relationship with her. Paradise's statement motivated another woman, actress and model Raylay Lawley, to come forward with her encounter. She said he groped her without her consent in 2017 when she was just 17 and called her jailbait. While both women received death threats after their allegations, it's unclear if he was ever investigated properly. Throughout the years, Paul has maintained consistency in subscribers, but lately that number has fallen exponentially. It's high time people realized he's not that relevant. So, from scamming his followers to allegations of sexual assault, these were Jake Paul's most controversial moments.